From Pocketnow.com, this is Pocketnow Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to episode 11 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow.com, where we discuss news and opinion, insights, happenings of all kinds from the world of mobile technology, smartphones, tablets, phablets, you name it. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, senior editor at Pocketnow. I'm joined today by our core podcast team, our editor-in-chief, Brandon Miniman. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
And our managing editor, Anton D. Nadja. Good afternoon to you. Welcome back.
Thank you very much. It's good to be back. Hey, everyone.
It's good to have you back. It's been way too long. It's been like 3 weeks, and that's an absurd amount of time not to have you on the podcast.
Well, we'll see how many complaint emails we receive.
We will. But you haven't been. Your hands have not been idle. You have some news from Romania.
All sorts of news, depending on which one you're referring at.
I mean,
is it the going back and forth to Berlin news, or is it the other news?
Oh, right. The other news is more important and doesn't make me look as incompetent. So tell me.
Well, not that anybody cares, but I am happy to announce that as of yesterday, I am a double citizen of Romania and Hungary.
Yes. This
is important for me because since Romanian people are required a visa to enter the States, Hungarian people are not. So I'm getting closer and closer to laying foot on U.S. territory.
For the first time, right?
For the first time, indeed.
That's really, really awesome. Good. Tony was an excellent host in Berlin for me for IFA, and I am looking forward to returning the favor with showing him many American customs, like dousing all sorts of meats in cheese and being very sedentary.
And also, yes, you are required to sit on a couch for an extended period of time while eating the most fattening variety of chips that you can find.
Exactly.
And you must also go to a Starbucks every morning and spend at least $5 on your morning beverage when you could probably go to, you could probably make it for 30 cents.
Right.
It will be an interesting experience.
Yes, it will. Well, congratulations. It's actually really awesome. And,
Thank you.
That's great news. We'll look forward. It'll be great. Wouldn't it be cool to do a podcast all in the same room?
That would be awesome. I think we're going to be able to do that in the near future.
Yeah, I hope so. Let's see. Brandon, I'm sorry, Tony, the other bit of news is that you are finally fully equipped in a computery sense, yes?
Yes, indeed. And just to keep it very, very short, when Michael Fisher, my dear colleague, was coming to the IFA in Berlin, he was supposed to bring me a computer from a particular maker, a U.S. computer maker. But unfortunately, the computer arrived dead. So Michael came to Europe without any computers. We got a refund. And while in Berlin, I placed an order with that certain store, which we don't have here in Romania. And they told me it will be arriving to my hotel in approximately 6 or 7 days, so I said it's okay for me to extend my stay in Berlin. But after a couple of days, it got extended to a week or so I came back to Romania, and upon arriving in Romania, I received an email that it's going to be shipping and delivering soon, so I just went back to Berlin again, got the computer, and came back to Romania. It was a hassle, but it was worth it.
Well, that'll teach you to order from Dell in the future.
Point taken.
It's a good lesson.
Well, yeah, no, I'm glad it's all been solved, and I'm glad that Tony, you got to revisit our favorite Pizza Hut in Berlin.
Yeah, indeed, the cheesy crust rules, man.
Yeah,
thanks for that. And there's our commercial.
Exactly, there's our sponsor. All right, well, before we jump into the news here, there's a lot to cover. Brandon, you have your customary spot to do with as you will.
Oh, very nice.
Please, what have you for us today?
Well, so the other day, on the iPhone 5, I ran a speed test over AT&T's LTE network, and I got an absurd and very unexpected 52 megabits per second down.
Holy cow.
Wow. If I could whistle, I would whistle right now.
Okay, you should whistle.
I can't.
You can't whistle.
Just get your GS free. Get your GS free, send yourself a text.
Good call. Yeah, you're right. So you get this 52 down. Wow.
And I start thinking, for at least the last 2 or 3 years, there's been parity between what kind of speeds you can get on an average connection here in the US of A, and what you can get on a high-end smartphone. So, for example, 3G came around and did speeds of like 1.5 megabits per second to like 3 megabits per second down. And around that same time, probably, I don't know, 2010, I might have the dates wrong, most people in the US were getting like 3 megabits per second down on their typical Comcast or Time Warner connection or what have you. And then HSPA Plus came around, and that was boosted to about 6 megabits per second down, maybe 10 if you're on some of T-Mobile's faster network. And then around that time, maybe 2011, speeds in the U.S. were bumped to around there. And then, Verizon built out their fiber optic network in the U.S., and for a very reasonable price, you can get 25 down residential here in the U.S. And around that time, Verizon launched their LTE network, and most people got about 25 megabits per second down. So it all kind of made sense. And then, LTE on AT&T is very unused because it's new. And so that 52 that I got was probably because no one was on. Very few people were on that particular network I was connected to. And it's probably going to settle around where Verizon is, around 25 or 35. But what happens in the relative near future when Verizon they're going to do it first, deploy LTE Advanced, because for those unfamiliar with LTE Advanced, it's kind of a piggyback off of LTE, kind of like HSPA Plus was a piggyback off of 3G or UMTS. And I can't say this word, theoretical.
Theoretically?
Let the Romanian guy try. Theoretically.
Nicely done.
Well, without the LY. The
theoretical.
In theory, LTE Advanced, last I read, can do like a gigabit down, which is 1,000 megabits per second. And obviously, we're far off from that. But when LTE Advanced launches, and there's no news of it yet because LTE is still in its infancy. Let's say 2 years from now, which is actually a very long time. 2 years from now, we get 50 megabits per second down. We get 100 megabits per second down. What will that change on for our mobile experiences? Because I'm thinking, I guess I'm putting a little negative spin on this, kind of questioning, why, faster is always better. But like, are you gonna pull down a web page, 0.2 seconds faster, or are you going to be able to upload a little bit faster? I want to ask you guys, what do you think LTE Advanced will enable in terms of what you can do on a mobile device with 100 megabits per second down?
Do you guys remember back in the day? I'm not sure. I'm sure some of our readers do. When we had those good old computers with those super big, large, and noisy hard drives, and the hard drives were actually slower than some internet connections, at least in this region. So it would download theoretically at speed X, but it would only download at speed X minus something because the hard drive wasn't able to write in that speed. So I think that we will have high speeds on our phones, but will the hardware be able to write or cope with that amount of data?
Well, I remember that was quite a bottleneck back when I was still working at Sprint, and we were trying to sell against the iPhone at AT&T, and we were selling the HTC Touch at the time. And the bottleneck wasn't in the data speed because EVDO Rev O had just launched, or Rev A or something, and so the data speed was fine. But the bottleneck was in the processing power of the hardware and on Internet Explorer, whatever mobile version it was running on Windows Mobile 5. So yeah, I think you're right. I think it's important to keep in mind what the hardware can do. It's not just a matter of the connection speed, but even I think this is a case of, we don't know. We have not yet imagined all of the possibilities because those speeds are not available to us yet. But I think humankind shows an amazing capacity to come up with things to fill space, right? So if there's empty space, we can come up with awesome media to fill it. And I don't know. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is just these absurd demands for 1080p video on mobile devices for some reason. I think that'll be one of the first things to fill that gap. Yeah.
I was gonna ask you, what can you do differently on your LTE Galaxy S3 or whatever than you could that you couldn't on your whatever phone? And that's a good answer. 1080p video, or you can't even do 1080p because the screen's not capable. What, 720p from YouTube, all all day long, no buffering. It's great. Video chat.
And high fidelity audio as well. I mean, don't forget Spotify has those many quality settings where it's like, if you're on a 3G connection, you better not put it at highest. But if I had an unlimited pipe, like LTE does this pretty well, I'll put it on max quality, and it's a totally different listening experience. And I'm not even that big an audiophile, you know.
Well, don't forget that I'm in Romania and I have 3G speeds and I have no problem with the highest setting.
Oh,
so
well,
it also depends on the stability of the speed of the network itself.
Very true. Yes.
Okay, so I understand your point, Michael, that we kind of can't imagine right now what will be possible with 100 megabits per second down, because we haven't gotten there yet, and a lot of things have to happen, and a lot of smart people have to rub their brain cells together. But I guess I'm suggesting that we come up with one or two things right now, just spur of the moment. They might not be the most brilliant things ever, but let's imagine. Let's
let us
cue the harp music and the puffy cloud.
Well, yeah, no, I mean they're in hand, like look what just happened, for example, with the Twitter application. Okay, so I'll go social media because that's my thing. Like the Twitter app the new Twitter app for iOS 6 dropped, and for the iPad, and it's totally different, and it's makes use of more prominent placement of graphics and things of that sort. I think it's that. I think we can't think of the future internet as this thing with like web pages as we know them today. I mean, they're not necessarily going to be packed with media, but they're going to make use of a lot more
imagery and stuff.
and maybe not more imagery, but just higher quality imagery, maybe textured textured pages and things of that sort. So I just think that the nature of the internet will change going forward as our data capacity increases. So I think we'll see more dense stuff. That's as close as I can get to a prediction for you. More dense stuff.
That's a really good point. I mean, for example, on Pocketnow, we tend to compress images. And one of the reasons is to make it faster for mobile users and those on a slower connection to not have to wait and, not like the days of 56K, see an image kind of,
line
by line.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point, because I was just about to send you, Brandon, something, a document with, it's no secret, it's like an expense report, and I have images of receipts inside it, and I exported it last night to an HTML file, and you forget sometimes that applications like Evernote will compress the images, so all these images that fit within this note in an HTML file were full size, and I look at these giant, like 8 megapixel images I've taken with a Galaxy S3 or something, and I'm like, wow, there's so much more data on some parts of the internet, or even some parts of your, of your local computer than you think. So that's another example. It's like, yeah, we compress images on our Pocketnow pages. What if we didn't post resized, smaller images that are compressed less? What if they were full size all the time? That would be one instance. I'm sorry, Tony, I didn't mean to run over your answer there.
No, it's not a problem. I just have a closing argument. Do you guys think that the priority in the near and mid-future will be mobile? I mean, just think of it, landlines and internet, which you have normally via fiber optics on your main computer, were the number one internet connection everybody used. And mobiles only played catch up to that. We have 50, 100, 150 megabytes per second in speed, while mobiles are just right now trying to bump to 25, 50. Do you think that in the near future this balance will shift towards mobiles being faster than normal internet?
That's a really good question. No?
No, I don't think so, because, I mean, you look at right now, Verizon just rolled out their Quantum, which is they're bumping people with 35 down to 75 down, and then they have up to 300 down. And I'm not going to use that word again. The
theoretical
maximum of fiber optics to your house, not through the copper line like some other providers do, I think is well beyond a gigabit per second, because it requires a lot of power, and because just by virtue of the power issues or battery power issues on mobile devices. Battery technology evolves a lot slower than Verizon's ability to flip a few switches and bump the power to the line to your house and your modem.
Yeah, well, that's true, too. And then there's the spectrum crunch as well, where it's like you have to fit all these users into the same slice of spectrum. on a cellular network, and those bandwidth considerations are less critical on the on the landline side. But I think, Tony, you make a good point though, that the focus of almost everything else is mobile. I mean, going forward, I just saw a report that like something like 25% of new tablet purchases, maybe in America, or of new computer purchases are tablets. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think the focus elsewhere is in mobile. I think that it's just going to take, if we ever are able to stave off our appetite or fulfill our appetite for spectrum, that's going to determine what we can do.
Plus, imagine if you're using the new iPad to navigate, and you're using your GS3 or your 1X, and it starts burning after 30 minutes. Imagine how phones and tablets would burn, literally, when using high-speed internet.
Right.
It's a problem now. Some of these devices really heat up when you're on LTE.
That's very true. Yeah, I think.
Plus the battery implications.
Yeah, I think some of the core of that is, I don't know if it's the LTE module or if it's the Qualcomm Snapdragon S4, but I remember using the quad-core version of the Galaxy S3 first, and I was like, oh, this thing doesn't warm up at all. And then I got my hands on the LTE version, and it's like, wow, this really cooks your palm even with moderate load. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, but good topic corner there. Let's I want to use that bit about processors to segue a little bit into our iOS section, which we're kind of going to do first here, because we had a story today. I think it was today that it was just some kind of really brief official confirmation. It was Tony. It was your piece, right, on the
about the processor.
Yeah, the processor underclocking and
Yeah, it's nothing official yet. I mean, Apple is still silent about technical specifications of the Apple A6 chip, but the Geekbench application, which was initially used to benchmark and test the iPhone 5 against other Android phones, has been updated. And the new update brings hardware support for the iPhone 5 in terms of making it capable of reading the specifications correctly. And the new version of Geekbench now shows that the Apple A6 processor is running at 1.29 gigahertz, so that's 1.3 gigahertz. And despite of the fact that the benchmark maker denied to Engadget that the Apple iPhone 5 does any sort of dynamic underclocking, I think it was 9to5Mac who obtained a screenshot of the same processor clocking below 600 megahertz. And this is something which, of course, other smartphones do on other platforms. Computers also do this, but for iOS users, for the iPhone, this is something good, because once you need that load, that specific power, it will just run at 1.3, and if you're just browsing a page which is fully loaded or listening to some music with your screen off, it will just save power by underclocking the CPU.
And I didn't know about that for the longest time. Like, I think it was only about a year or two ago that I learned about variable processor speeds. Like, I didn't know that they changed dynamically. So, but I remember using a homebrew application on my HP Veer for WebOS or something, where you could really dial down the minimum speed of the CPU, or blast it up into the stratosphere if you wanted to. You could manually control it, and it was so interesting to watch the device responsiveness change depending on what you had your CPU cycle set at. And the same thing will happen on the Galaxy S3 with Samsung's new power saving mode. If you go into power saving mode, it'll I think it puts a 300 megahertz ceiling on the processor speed or something.
A speed cap.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, it runs like it's 2009 hardware trying to run, ICS. It's amazing.
What would be interesting to see and hear, beside an official confirmation of this, would be the amount of times the processor and the system itself is capable of changing this frequency. Because say you are in a 600 megahertz mode doing nothing, and then you power up your, game or an application which needs power, just to know exactly how many times per second can it switch frequencies from high to low. Because the faster it can do that, the better for the application, for the experience, and for the battery.
Right. That's I want to kind of use that to leap into the iPhone 5 here, because this is the first time this is the first podcast we've had since we got the iPhone 5. Which I think, Brandon, you did something like, it was close to about 47 videos this weekend, wasn't it? There are comparisons galore at Pocketnow.com between the 1X, the GS3, and of course the full review. Can you, Brandon is one of several people on the team who's got an iPhone 5. I'm not one of them, And I don't think, Tony, you are either. So, Brendan, would you...
I am preparing to pre-order one tonight because on the 28th, it will be available in 22 more countries. Of course, Romania is not among them, but I have a neighboring country of which citizen I recently became. Yes. And I'm preparing to order one from there.
Cool. Well, it's since neither one of us have one in the interim, though, and Brandon's the only one on the team with it. Brandon, I read your review, and it was great to actually get your thoughts on it. But can you just kind of tell us in your own words how your time with the iPhone 5 has been going?
Yeah, so it's funny because every time I get the new iPhone in every year, now the 6th year. Well, I guess it was different the first 2 years or 3 years. But I always think the same thing, which is, wow, this is a really awesome device. It does everything that it does very well. It makes calls well, it takes photos well, it browses the web well. And then there's always a but, and the but changes sort of from generation to generation. With the iPhone 4, the but was, I waited a year and I got the same exact device, just a little bit faster.
Yeah.
The but with the, I guess there were sort of, there are two buts with the iPhone 5. And I'm not talking about...
I cannot wait until the Joe Levi live tweet, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just leave it there. The two buts are that iOS 6, is it? It's 5.
Right? 6 on the new one?
Yes, iOS 6. iOS 6 shouldn't have been called iOS 6. It should have been called iOS 5.5.
Yes.
And you look at like what the differences between Windows Phone 7 and 8. You look at the differences between Android, 2 and 3 and 3 and 4. Is that right?
3 and 4 is the big leap. Yeah.
And things look different, things feel different, and that's the most important part, is that they feel different. iOS doesn't feel any different. They polished little tiny places, and at the end of the day, I kind of feel like I've been fooled, I've been tricked. So that's the first thing. I'm truly tired of iOS, and the only thing that makes me still excited about this device is that it, like I said, it does everything very well, which is not to say that the Galaxy S3 that I was using, 2 weeks ago doesn't do everything that it does well. The other but is that the hardware, while extremely beautiful, is flawed. These metal edges, there's something significantly wrong with them.
Yeah, they're beveled, right? There's a different... Is that the part that chips that you were talking about in your review?
That's the part that chips. And on the black model, which looks a lot nicer than the white model, I should add, it is far worse. Yesterday I saw my bro who got the black one, and he was pointing out to me on his edges there are numerous scratches from the factory.
Really?
Mine has a nick from the factory. And then he went on to use the device for the last, since Friday, which is not that long, and he's very careful with his phone, and he pointed out a variety of other nicks and scratches that are on his device. So while his iPhone 5 looks really badass from afar, it's black, it's menacing looking. Looking up close, you're like, wow, this almost looks like junk. It's scratched all over the place. I can't imagine that Apple's going to recall their 5 million iPhones that they've sent out already. It's a design flaw, just like the issue with the iPhone 4 with the antenna issues. It's a design flaw. And,
what kind of flaw? I mean, are they using soft metal that's too soft? Like, I mean, what's the deal?
It's too. I think that aluminum's softer than other metals, right? It's lighter, but it's softer.
True. Right.
And they did this, beautiful polished edge. And I guess they're almost taking off the top layer of the metal, whereas on the back it has a layer on it, a sort of a protective layer. But on these sides, it's kind of like raw metal. And so it's kind of upsetting, right? Because you've got this new awesome feeling in your hand device. It's expensive. It feels expensive, and then you look around the edges up closely, and you're like, "Ooh, did I drop this? No."
The funny thing is that if you guys remember back in the iPhone 4 days, the problem was with the iPhone 4 in white. I mean, Apple had problems with getting the exact color in the white shape. Now we have problems with the black one. Of course, aluminum is not a metal which you can easily paint. So I'm not defending Apple right here because they did a terrible job with their quality control. But anodizing the aluminum brings a thin layer of color, of of another material on top of the aluminum itself. So when you drop it, when you scratch it, when you do something which bothers that certain layer of color on top of the aluminum, it just exposes the material underneath, which is the aluminum itself. So they really should have thought of this, even at the cost of never having a black iPhone. Just have it like the Macs, have it silver, have it aluminum natural color, because they should have known that this is prone to happen.
According to our friends at Wikipedia, anodizing increases the thickness of the natural... Ooh, phone call. Increases the thickness of the natural oxide layer on the surface of metal parts. So it's okay. So I get that, and it's for durability, right? And it's for increased resistance to wear. But
yes, but when it
scratches off, it's very obvious, right?
And just one more thing to get back to what Brandon said about iOS 6 being iOS 5.5, I 90% agree with him, but that 10% in me says no. And let's take a look at this in the following way. So far, we only had one screen resolution on the iPhone 4 and 4S, and two screen resolutions on the iPad and the new iPad. These were all they all had in common the iPhone's resolution. I mean, the Retina display is almost a double up. Now, the iOS 6 brings a completely new resolution to the table, which means that they probably had to redesign some core aspects of the platform to support now 1, 2, 3, 4 resolutions in total. So probably not because of the features, but because of redrawing the core elements that they thought of making it iOS 6 and not 5 point something. This is what I think.
Sure.
That could be it. And speaking of taller screen resolution, I find it very ironic that Apple's Apple Store app has not been updated for the taller screen.
Oh, really? So what? There's black bars on the top and bottom?
There's black bars. How could that possibly be? I don't know. But you know, I think I'm being a little negative on the iPhone right now. But I should say that while iOS 6 does indeed bore me, it's kind of okay because the iPhone 5 is dramatically faster, in my opinion, than the iPhone 4S. Like, I cannot get it to slow down and to bog down. In the review video I did, I was double tapping the home button and switching between apps, and not just, you know, static apps, but camera, something that has to open, a video that has to show up on the screen and be stored in memory. And you cannot slow this thing down. It is blazing fast.
Well, that is entirely supported by a story that PC World ran where they said the iPhone 5 is the fastest phone they've ever benchmarked. Is that correct?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes. But I have to say this, I also think I corrected it in my post. Their headline says the iPhone 5 is the fastest phone in the land. And this is a very important aspect because the land, obviously the USA, doesn't have the quad-core Exynos processor on the Galaxy S3 and doesn't have the quad-core Tegra 3 on the HTC One X. They will probably have the quad-core Exynos on the Note 2. So they have compared the iPhone 5 with the dual-core versions of other Android phones, and yeah, probably faster. Right. But once you compare it with the GS3, the global version, or even the HTC One X, the difference is either smaller or the iPhone 5 is just the second or the third one.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The Galaxy S3 quad core has got to be, I'm going to guess, is going to be faster, and especially the Note 2 with the quad core.
But do you think they perform as well, though? And like, do you think they can reproduce? In your experience, in the head-to-head, you know, can the Galaxy S3 keep up with the new iPhone 5 in that sense of UI responsiveness?
You know, that's a good question. I kind of always look at the Galaxy S3 as with CyanogenMod 10 living on it. Mm-hmm. And I can say that CyanogenMod 10 on a Galaxy S3 with screen animations turned off, it absolutely feels faster than the iPhone 5. My purpose in saying that the iPhone 5 feels ridiculously fast is I'm just comparing it with the 4S. But the fastest feeling phone I've ever experienced is the quad-core Galaxy S3 with CyanogenMod 10. That thing is just like everything's instantaneous. I'll think about an app and it'll open it before I even get to it. It's just amazing.
This is very, very true, but we need to keep it stock. So when we do comparisons between phones, we always tend to keep it as stock as possible. So the out-of-the-box experience, because not every Android user is a super power user. So what I'm saying here is that the Galaxy S3, the quad-core version, is even out of the box with Ice Cream Sandwich faster than the iPhone 5. I've Geekbenched mine, and the highest score I got was close to 1800, which compared to the 1500 and something on the iPhone 5 is faster. And that's without Jelly Bean.
So keeping it though, like from the viewpoint of the average user, right? Who hears Geekbench and thinks and like visualizes some nerd's desk. Right, who doesn't know what the hell a Geekbench is, or doesn't give a damn about any of that. I feel like still, and maybe this is me, and I'm wrong because I don't have the iPhone 5 yet, but I still feel like, from what I've seen video-wise, the UI responsiveness and the way it feels would be very surprising for me to hear anyone say that the Galaxy S3 is able to keep up with the iPhone 5 from a UI perspective. And I'm not saying the Galaxy S3 is slow. I think it's definitely the fastest Android phone I've ever handled, even the dual-core version. All I'm saying is the iPhone 5, I think, is still faster. Am I wrong?
It depends on how the operating system has been built, and
sure.
And iOS was always built with the user experience in mind. I mean, right. I think it was a report that iOS always renders graphics and whatever you have on your screen with higher priority than others.
That was debunked. Yeah, there was a whole big thing.
But again, there's Project Butter, which right. brings that to Android, because previous versions of Android didn't prioritize certain processes, but now Project Butter not only prioritizes it, but it anticipates it.
Right. Yeah, and it's, in reviewing the iPhone 4S and below, it was kind of a little bit easier to recommend an iPhone device if you wanted a smooth, refined experience. But Jelly Bean, I always come on here and say this, Jelly Bean fixed Android. Mm-hmm. And it's no longer about the smoothness anymore. And maybe 5% of Android devices have Jelly Bean at this moment in time. But the gap is definitely closing, at least in that respect, which is a very important component. It's how you interact with it. It's how you experience the operating system.
This is also true, yes, but then again, you have to know that you are comparing a quad-core experience with a dual-core experience. Now, how about if you compare Jelly Bean on a dual-core 1.3 gigahertz processor with the iPhone 5?
Have to do that.
Yeah. We'll have to do that and see exactly at the same specs which is faster, iOS 6 or Jelly Bean, because Jelly Bean, of course, brings support for multiple cores, and quad-core processors are almost always faster if applications are done right than dual-core processors. If applications are done right.
Can I use this as a little springboard here, because I kind of want to do something. I want to move on a little bit, but. On Newsroom, which is a series you should watch if you're at all into the news, sometimes if big newsworthy stuff drops, they'll say, throw out the rundown. And that's what I want to say, because we were going to talk about Windows Phone next, but I kind of want to... We started talking about Jelly Bean, and I kind of want to jump into Android, but before I do, I want to ask Brandon if you've got anything else, or Tony, on the iPhone 5, because I really want to ask about Jelly Bean as it relates to what we're talking about.
Aside from the fact that I can't wait to have it and to see firsthand what that Mapplegate is about, which I haven't seen it yet, except for on my iPad.
We do have to touch on that.
Yeah, Apple really did a lousy job on that. Now I'm sure they will fix it in a couple of months, in 6 months, something like that. They will bring it. I'm not saying it will be better than Google Maps, but they will fix it. But at the moment, it just sucks.
So, how bad does it suck, Brandon? Like, is it a core functionality problem? Like, I saw somebody on my Facebook feed this morning say that on their new iPhone, the Maps application thinks that Harvard Square, which is right down the street from me in Cambridge, is in like Kentucky somewhere. Like, I mean, is it that bad? Like, is it gonna like get you, drive you off a cliff or what?
I don't think so. I mean, it works, and it works fine. It's half baked, and to see a half to baked product like you just described a scenario, and I've seen several of those. I've seen, my local high school. I was driving by and I opened Maps, not while driving, and it misspelled the high school name. I mean, that high school's been there for like 50 years. It's just like little things. It's just so unexpected in an Apple product. They obviously ship this thing too early. It's not good enough.
And this is the US where all the focus on mapping data is. Now imagine my country, which is not even a top European country. I have a shopping mall here in Oradea where I live, and it's called Lotus Center. And when I look that up on Google Maps, of course it finds it, but when I look it up on iOS 6, it finds some, I don't know what kind of a Lotus fleece market or something like that in the States. I mean, come on, I don't think I have 2 or 3 POIs in my city on iOS 6.
Right.
It's very clear that Google is going to release a Maps app for iOS 6, and it's going to make.
I don't think they will.
You don't think they will?
I don't think they will.
Scrambling to do it.
I think they'll just let Apple burn.
No, because this is a huge opportunity for Google. Google wants everyone in the world to use their products and services.
Yeah, they need eyeballs on that stuff. Yeah.
And Apple can't reject that app because it will be tremendous. They can technically, but they're not going to, because everyone's going to be extremely upset about that, and it's going to be really bad press for Apple, who will look like Big Brother.
Yeah, but if they accept that application, nobody will use iOS Maps. And then again, the purpose of iOS Maps is to be used.
Until they make it better, which they will do. Like Apple's, they've got egg on their face right now. I mean, this is a company that is enormously devoted to its own sense of face and pride. And the fact that they've launched this app that's getting this amazing level of backlash is got to be one of the most embarrassing things they've done in recent memory. So they're going to fix this.
By the way, Go on, Brendan.
Oh, I was just going to say real quick, what's interesting is that apparently the Maps app in iOS 6 is cloud-based, so they can update data without having to push out another version of the app.
This was something I wanted to touch upon. Yeah, it's cloud-based, and it's, how should I say this? It's crowdsourced, if I may. Did you guys see that statement the TomTom spokesperson said that there's nothing wrong with the maps. There's nothing wrong with the mapping data. They are still the leaders in mapping data. Of course, Nokia would disagree. And they just said that Apple did allows the implementation of that mapping data.
I did not see that, but that is, wow. I didn't know they were doing that kind of finger pointing.
Wow. No, they didn't.
Yeah, man. I mean, I feel like if you're TomTom, whatever. I don't know. I don't really think much about TomTom, but they're their partner, right? They're their launch partner on the map.
Yeah, but the experience is just bad press for TomTom, and they want to, of course, keep their name there high up on the list.
Right. Yeah.
I remember we talk often about how it's increasingly difficult to impress people with smartphone features and smartphone hardware, and Flyover has given me a new opportunity to impress people. And so I type in Empire State Building, and then I click on the thing, and then I click on the thing, and I'm like, wow, look at this. And all the while I'm doing this, and I'm thinking, I'll never use this feature.
Isn't that fun when you? That's fun when you do. Like I used to do it when augmented reality was a thing, and you hold up your phone, and it's like, hey, check it out. You can see all the sites in real time. And of course, it's not a useful feature in the slightest, but it really impresses the hell out of people.
I was showing off iOS Maps to somebody who was recently visiting me, and of course, it's no match to Google Street View. But of course, Flyover is excellent. But I couldn't find more than 2 or 3 spots on the planet which have Flyover enabled. I mean, Empire State Building, yes. Big Ben, yes. But I searched for Eiffel Tower, and no. I've searched for the Pisa Tower, and no. So we have 2 venues or 3 venues around the world where you can use this. How often do you guys go to the Empire State Building or to the Big Ben?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Do you guys use Street View a lot? Are you upset that there's no Street View in Maps in iOS 6?
I haven't used it. I mean, maybe occasionally once or twice a year when I'm at the MWC or IFA, and I need to know specifically whether that street is the street I'm looking for, but else no.
Yeah, no, I mean, I use Street View more. I use Street View kind of sparingly, but it certainly is useful when I do have to use it. I like showing up to a place and being like, not only, yes, I know I'm on the right corner, but, oh, yes, I have actually seen these storefronts before.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, it's very, very useful. So it's annoying that it's not there. Do you think they'll do that? Does Apple? I mean, Apple certainly has the resources to do it. Do you think they have the will to because they can't use Google's imaging data, right, from their Street View. Like, they would have to go and drive everywhere and take photos.
There's not a chance.
Yeah, true.
It would take years, and so many. Well, they have the resources, but
here's how I see iOS Maps in 2 or 3 years. I see them being as accurate as Google Maps, and obviously Apple will probably try to strive towards having flyover enabled across the globe. So flyover being available everywhere would be a great response to Google Street View.
Yeah, it would. No, you're absolutely right.
That would be helpful. I mean, because it kind of does sort of the same thing, maybe even a little bit better if the data is good enough.
Right.
And it's on their servers, so it will only come down to your data speeds and how much data you're consuming.
Yeah.
That's a good thought. I like that thought. I want to say one more thing about the iPhone before we move on.
Please do.
So in the review, I said I kind of like the Lightning Thunder. No, it's Lightning.
Oh, with the connector?
Yeah, I like it. It's satisfying to plug in. It's reversible, and I think people discount how important reversible is. But micro USB, you got to get it in right. That's what. Anyway,
oh, well.
That's not good. Anyway.
Okay, Joe Levi, let's see what you can make out of this.
So anyway, when I was preparing the review, I took an HD video on my phone. I had some from the previous days, and I was like, all right, now I got to get this video onto my computer. So I'm like, oh, I'll plug in the cable, and I'm at my office, and I look around and I have the 30 pin, and I'm like, oh. No, I don't have to go home, do I? And so I start thinking about every possible way. I say, okay, I can do iTunes Wi-Fi sync. No, you have to plug it in and turn in Wi-Fi sync. And then so I contact Jaime. I'm like, Jaime, I know there's a way to get this video off this phone. He's like, upload it to YouTube. I upload it to,
dude.
Yeah, right. Doesn't
Google Drive, right?
I uploaded to I was wishing I had Android at that moment. I uploaded it to YouTube. It compressed it to 720. Well, I can't release a video sample that's 720 and compressed. And so Jaime said, I found an application that sets your phone up as a Wi-Fi server, and it allows you to transfer something or other. So I had to buy this app to enable it to tap into my photo stream, but it would, not photo stream, my camera roll, but it would only work with photos, not video. So then I'm like, I should probably have another Lightning cable I keep at the office. So I go online and I try to find a Lightning cable, which Apple isn't even shipping yet, extra Lightning cables. And then it got me a little bit angry, because if only Apple had included that egregiously priced $29 accessory with every iPhone, I wouldn't have to, spend, 30, 40 minutes on the road driving back home to get the Lightning cable. So
Brandon, a couple of years from now, you will have 5 or 6 Lightning cables laying around, just like we have 30-pin cables right now, from your iPad, from your iPhone, from your iPod. So you will have so many. It's just the beginnings. I'm not defending Apple.
I hope not.
I wanted something which was magnetic, like the MagSafe.
Yes.
But no, that would have been cool.
That would have been really cool.
Yeah.
But just from you just throw the whole cable connector style out. Like, this is like a 5 or 6 year old complaint, but I don't care. I'll say it again. I am the fact that Apple doesn't give you access to the file system on iOS devices is the geekiest thing I'll ever say. Because usually I'm the champion of the everyman. I'm like, you don't need a file system, throw it out. But I'm in that situation all the time with my iPad, which I use for some photography. LOL, I'm an idiot. But I look like a moron taking a photo.
What do you mean by file access system? Because
I can't, like, if I want to transfer a photo from an iPad to my Mac or to a desktop machine, like, I have to connect. First of all, I have to connect it with the wire if I don't want to email the photo and deal with the compression and all that kind of stuff. And I have to use iPhoto. I have to use an application to import the images directly. All I want, if I'm trying to deal with a raw file that I don't want software to get its hands on and to fiddle with and whatever, I just want to drag and drop, and I can't do that. And I can't do that.
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but you can always either upload it to your Dropbox, then a photo stream uploads it.
Yeah, right, but if you're dealing with video, though, like, all those applications will compress it. They'll do their weird stuff to it. They'll, rather than just letting me, all right, let me plug this in. Let me drag and drop this over.
I see what you mean, but Windows Phone is the exact thing.
No, I'm not saying. I mean, Windows, that's because Windows Phone has emulated, like, the iOS environment. You know what I mean?
At the moment, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. That's a whole different thing. I'm not gonna. Can I just be honest? I'm really just annoyed that wires are still around. We already talked about wireless stuff when Jaime was on, and apparently, judging by all the comments, everyone still loves wires. So
yeah, me too.
All y'all can just eat it.
You guys mentioned the MagSafe adapter. Can you guess why they didn't do it?
Well, I have a couple of
Yeah,
ideas.
do magnets, would that take up some space?
That's one.
Sure, that's one. Could
That's
be.
one, and
Just
plus
guessing.
the magnets and the antenna, the antennae which are on top and on the bottom wouldn't play nicely with each other.
And the magnetometer as well, the compass.
But then again, the iPad has magnets inside its screen because of the smart cover, which snaps into place on the left and on the right, and it doesn't have anything to do with the compass and stuff like that. So probably they didn't want to have something which was, or plus, if you look at the MagSafe adapter, it has 4 or 5 pins, and the MagSafe 2 is also smaller. Now the Lightning cable has 8 or 9 contacts, if I'm right. So in order to have a magnetic something like that, it would have been needed for them to be the contacts to be aligned in one single line, and that would have taken up too much space on the bottom of the phone. Just rambling here, just a couple of random thoughts.
Why, Brandon, do you have something specific that you're thinking about?
Also, sort of, I mean, along the lines we've been talking, I mean, the placement of the magnet, there's a speaker right near the connector, and you can't really put a magnet near a speaker.
But speakers are magnet-based, so they could have used the magnet inside the speaker to attract the MagSafe adapter.
That would have been some sci-fi awesomeness.
That's crazy.
All right,
Yeah.
I want to move on, if we can, to Android.
We will.
Because we were talking about Jelly Bean before. I'm sorry, I apologize for forgetting about the Mapplegate thing, the way to talk about it. But when we were talking about Jelly Bean, I was thinking about the Galaxy S3 because Samsung has officially begun the Galaxy S3 Jelly Bean rollout.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, I know.
Finally.
But at the same time, and that's my initial response too, right? It's like, oh, thank God, finally, this OEM is pushing out this update. But then I think about it, and I'm like, why do I want it? And the reason I'm asking that question is because, as I said before, I find incredibly, I can't believe I'm saying this, I find the TouchWiz skin on the Galaxy S3, on all the Galaxy S3s that I have, to run so smoothly.
True.
That it is completely, that in my experience, even as a UI-obsessed freak, it runs at the same speed and with the same fluidity as does the Jelly Bean on my Nexus 7. So why am I excited about this? I'm not excited about it for the marginal improvements to notifications. I'm not excited about it for Google Now, which I don't really make use of. So why is this a thing? What am I missing, guys?
Because it's something which you don't already have, and of course you want it because it's out there. Sure. This is a psychological thing. And second, it's the increase in speed, not necessarily in the TouchWiz, but system-wise, in launching applications, better multitasking, better memory management, and those things which on the quad-core processor might not be that visible, but at the system-wide level, they are an increase in performance.
I guess I just have I have zero complaints about the way this device that I'm using right now operates.
Well, there's also as you know, there are when I was testing the leaked version of Jelly Bean on the Galaxy S3 with TouchWiz, there were probably a dozen or 2 dozen little changes in settings, ways widgets look, and they're using the Jelly Bean update as an opportunity to kind of run some bug fixes. And while you might think that the interface is super smooth, Michael, now, I'm sure that I could give you a few things to do to point out Ice Cream Sandwich's weaknesses, sure. Like in the web browser. And for example, in the web browser, maybe it's not that big of a deal, but when you scroll down the page rapidly right now, you sometimes get some checkerboards or white space, and with Jelly Bean, that won't be the case.
In Chrome or in the stock browser?
Either
one. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. So I guess. Right. All right. We can still be excited about this. This isn't a big point. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, but I think this is more psychological, as I touched upon it. It's out there. It's already 3 or 4 months old, and you demand it. You need it. Not that you need. You want it. You expect to have it.
I guess it's just kind of interesting that and maybe I'm giving too much credit to TouchWiz, but I think it's kind of interesting that there's been a reversal where skins used to be this lamented thing where it's like, they slow everything down. And I think in the case of HTC Sense, they kind of still do. But, if I still had my Galaxy Nexus and I was waiting on Jelly Bean, I would be waiting with bated breath. But because Samsung has done such a good job building the software on top of ICS for the Galaxy S3, I'm just almost completely apathetic.
Yeah, they did a good job. They really did, and it's interesting to hear you to say that.
Isn't it weird to say that out loud? Yeah, you feel like you're like lying or something. Anyway, so that's happening. Look out for that.
One last thing, I will probably be the last person on this planet to get the official update. As usual, I always am the last one on the planet to get official updates. So I'm going to let you guys know whenever Jelly Bean hits my GS3.
Oh, that's sad. Please do. And I will let you know when it hits mine, of course, and if I notice. Can we, speaking of not that at all, LG is building another Optimus View.
Can we stop them?
Yeah, I think it's too late. I think it's been announced officially for South Korea as of I think today or yesterday.
Today.
Stop the manufacturing. Press the red button.
Stop
We're not doing this.
Well, this is fascinating to me. I mentioned this in a piece recently. It's interesting to me when companies make sequels to products that were, first of all, that were just mediocre. It's even more interesting when they make sequels to products that are like not well received. And I don't think the View has been very well received. And based on your time with the Intuition, Brandon, I think that didn't change when it came to the U.S. So what's the story? I mean, why are they doing this? Do you guys think?
Well, I go on.
No, you first.
I don't think that you're getting it, guys. LG is just pushing out the View 2 because there's a Samsung Galaxy Note 2 out there, and they are already 1 year. Whenever Samsung came out with the Galaxy Note in 2011 at the MVC, there was a follow-up. It was the View. And the View is still not available. And now there's the Note 2, and of course there has to be the View 2. And this is just plain stupid, or it's me that I'm plain stupid because I don't understand a thing. The initial View had a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor with 1 gig of RAM. Then this month, or I think it was in August, they said that it will be available with a spec bump. They will replace the 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon processor with a quad-core Tegra 3 and still 1 gig of RAM. And now the View 2 has again a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core processor, a step back, but it has 2 gigs of RAM. So I think I'm stupid. I don't get it.
No, I don't think you're the one who's stupid. No.
Someone made a mistake. It's not true.
I don't know. Whatever. I think it's interesting. It's kind of the same story as like the Pad phone getting its own sequel, which I don't mean to put these things in the same category. I think the Pad phone is a more innovative idea. I think it's just as doomed, but I think it's a more interesting idea than the View 2. This is not the way to do it. This is not where LG is going to find success in kind of releasing an uninspired sequel to an uninspired original design.
Well, then the same thing's going to happen with this. It's going to be not well received. I mean, the LG's alternative, they have to be in the phablet space. HTC has to be in the phablet space. They will be soon. Everyone has to be in the phablet space because Samsung has proved that it's a big moneymaker. So LG could have done one of two things. They could have scratched the View concept, created a new phablet, which would have been admitting defeat would have been admitting that the original View was a failure, or they could have come up with a View 2 with hopefully some significant changes that make it noticeably different than the original View. But they just didn't do that. It's almost like it like looks very similar to me. It's almost like they cracked open the case and they had an engineer solder in another gig of RAM, and then they're like, all right, we're good.
Right.
Yeah, but imagine a possible View 2 with a super fast Snapdragon S4 Pro processor, which is on the Optimus G, with a super high resolution, not 1024 by 768 or whatever the resolution is, but a 720p display, and that would have been a worthy competitor.
It may be on paper, but I think if you've managed to squeeze in a V8 diesel engine into the Optimus View body, I don't think anybody would still buy it. Like I think it is a dead end product that is in a form factor that is unfriendly, that nobody likes, that nobody will ever buy. I think it's a dead product. I think they should have killed it.
That's the key. It's a form factor that no one's going to buy. And Tony, you said why don't they put a 720p screen in there? That would be the smart thing to do. Nobody wants a 4:3 aspect ratio phone. It is terrible for so many reasons.
Right.
Yeah, and they are so fond of it.
And
they keep on pushing it and pushing it.
Right, and I get that you want to differentiate, and it's like, look, we're doing something different. I respect the hell out of that, but it's not the way that LG is going to catch up to Samsung in any respect. So Whatever. That makes me depressed. Let's not talk about the View 2 anymore. Can we talk about something I haven't paid any attention to, which is these? Hold on. Wait, sorry, I want to ask first because you just mentioned it, Brandon. That HTC One X Plus that got pictured for T-Mobile. Listeners, if you haven't read this story, this is just a quick leak. Is the HTC One X Plus distinct from HTC's possible phablet offering, or is it the same thing? I'm confused right now.
It's different.
It is different.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
All right. So do we know anything more about that HTC phablet? This isn't in the rundown at all.
It's just wishful thinking, I think.
Nobody has actually confirmed this.
I heard from someone that there's an HTC event next week. I haven't been informed of it. So it may or may not be true. It would make sense because right around now, if HTC is going to be releasing a fall Android product or two, this is the time to do it. So we might hear about the HTC DIX and the DIX, and then the One X Plus next week.
Yeah, but let's not forget there's also something else in the rumor mill. It's the Flyer tablet refresh, which we've been hearing about. So it should be. I don't think there will be a phablet, and I think that if HTC wanted to enter the phablet game, they would have done it by now. A 4.7-inch form factor for the One X and the One X Plus is okay. It's a large smartphone. What they want to do maybe is get a 7-inch tablet out there, a Flyer. A refresh with super good specs, a great build quality, great design, and a super cheap price.
It would be interesting to see the Flyer succeed in its second incarnation. I guess we'll have to wait and see what they announce.
May I make a prediction?
Oh yeah, please.
It's pretty clear by now that Samsung is not going to be releasing a premium tablet this year, which is really crazy if you think about it. 12 months, and the best tablet we have from Samsung is the Note 10.1, which has received very mixed reviews, to say the least. Yeah. Here's what I think has happened. I think that they were preparing a high-res, quad-core iPad 3 competitor, a 9.7-inch, 10-inch device for 2012. And
then they got owned.
Yeah, then they got owned, but then they said, why don't we just release this 10.1 Note? We'll put a lot of marketing prowess behind it because it's truly different than the iPad, and we'll continue to work on the new Samsung high-end tablet and make it and try to preempt what's going to happen with the iPad 4. Because the iPad 4, it's kind of funny. It's not that far off from now. It's going to be announced in March and in April, which is
Mm-hmm.
It's 6 months away. So I think that Samsung is skipping this generation of iPad to compete with, because they don't have anything that competes with that if you think about it, with a high-res display and,
I just wish I saw that dinosaur, that super tablet Samsung was rumored to somewhere announce after MVC or somewhere around February or March. Do you guys remember that 11.6-inch quad-core full HD?
Yeah.
I wanted to see that badly, but maybe Brandon, you were right, and let's not forget the iPad mini rumors. So if Apple is to out an iPad mini, then I think Samsung will out a super competitive 7-inch tablet, not a la Samsung 7-inch, which they have right now, the Galaxy Tab, but something better.
Can I be honest? Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think that I'm kind of sitting here being like, why am I having to make an effort to pay attention? And that's because it's a boring product already in my mind because of the OS it runs. I love Android on a smartphone, and I love it in raw form on the Nexus 7. But I certainly don't love it in a tablet size, and it's certainly not running TouchWiz as it's currently implemented on, say, the Galaxy Note 10.1.
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm much more interested in Samsung's offerings, like in the Windows 8 space on a tablet, or other OEMs in the Windows 8 space on a tablet. So it's like, I think until people are able to get excited about Android on tablets outside of the Nexus 7 arena, this is all kind of moot. It doesn't matter what Samsung does.
True. We'll Matias Duarte, let's see your A game.
Yes. Oh, totally. And hopefully Samsung, with its kind of new preferred partner status, can get some inside information on the future direction of Android, so they can craft TouchWiz to complement it and not to usurp its advantages. You know?
Do you think that despite all the crazy rumors of Samsung ditching Android, which I think are just dumb, will Samsung become to Android what Nokia is for Microsoft for Windows Phone?
I think that all depends on
or
what Google
is that
does with
Motorola?
Yeah, exactly.
Motorola.
I mean, I think that's what Google's going to try and do with Motorola.
Even
They
though
want more control, right? You know.
Yeah, but outside of the US, Motorola doesn't count. And I'm sorry, Motorola guys, but here in Europe, Motorola phones are, I haven't seen one in the wild. So they just don't sell. And from what I see in the US, Motorola is just another Android another Android phone. If they want to, I don't know, have something better, faster, nicer with Motorola, they should both invest much more time and R&D and resources, because Motorola definitely has what it takes, and with Google support and money, they have everything they need. But instead, we just see the Razr HD or the Razr I.
Right.
I mean, come on.
But you know, I think the Razr M actually even does serve as a positive, sign of where Motorola is going, because I really the evolution in software and even hardware to an extent between the Atrix HD, which was very clearly started when Motorola was still its own company, and the Razr M, which probably is kind of a hybrid between the two, is not quite night and day, but it's really amazing. The Razr M is a really awesome phone. The Atrix HD is really not, in my opinion. So, I think they're going the right direction. I think Google's going to do some really impressive stuff with Motorola. So we'll have to wait and see.
Good.
Can we? There's some other Android stuff, but actually, I would like to jump into Windows Phone since we talked about it. Would you guys be okay with that? We're running a little short on time as usual.
Sure. Just looking if we're missing something, but nothing out of the ordinary.
I don't want to talk about the Nokia HD. Hey guys, Barnes & Noble released some new tablets. Go buy them if you want them. Yeah, I don't know. Is anybody? If you guys are excited about it, please stop me, because I'm not. I don't care about the Nook. Should we care about the Nook?
It's funny almost that we talk about them, because we take a step back. They're running Android, but that's not Android, and they're intended for different types of people. You could argue that they're for the power user, because the Kindle Fire HD, the Nook Color tablet, they've got so many names. They had really good developer communities. You could relatively easily strip off the Barnes & Noble or the Amazon operating system thing and put stock Android on it. But besides that, out of the box, they are not intended for people that are listening to this podcast for the most part.
Yeah, and I think that's why I wanted to touch on it briefly when I was thinking about the podcast, because I know the original Nook Color was a big deal for Android enthusiasts who wanted to run stock Android or a CM build on it, because it was a cheap tablet. But now in the day of the Nexus 7, which I've talked about, I think 14 times on this podcast already, you have a tablet that's good, that runs well, and that's cheap, and that's kind of just stolen all the thunder out from under these guys.
Plus, let's not forget Google Play Books. We now have books.
Oh, right,
Android.
The content store. Yes, exactly.
So,
right.
And even if you don't like Google Play Books, I've been on the Amazon Kindle ecosystem since the original Kindle, and I download the app, and it's like, boom, I've got one of these things that they're selling, but it's on my Nexus 7.
Exactly. It's on the hardware I prefer. All right, so let's move on then. I want to talk Windows Phone real quick. This was the most surprising headline to me from the past week, and I think I'm alone. I think I was the only one surprised by this. Rumor has it, correct me if this has been debunked, that that Nokia is pondering suing HTC over its new Windows Phone 8 designs.
I haven't heard any follow-ups or debunks, neither confirmations.
Yeah.
So we'll just treat it as a rumor, but I don't think it will ever happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's interesting to hear this, because of course we talked about this already. This is the first thing that leapt to my mind when HTC announced their new Windows phones. I was like, oh wow, those look a lot like Lumia's. And of course, I think 90% of that is the fact that they're brightly colored, and maybe that's not enough to substantiate a lawsuit, and maybe that's what Nokia is sitting there thinking about right now. Like, could we actually win if we went through with this? But I mean, yeah, this gets into a larger discussion of what constitutes infringement, and it's like all phones to a degree are rectangles. So, how much does making brightly colored casings infringe on what the fins are doing?
You know, this discussion would make sense if Windows Phone had a 60% market share and Microsoft wouldn't care if Nokia is killing HTC or vice versa. But with a still sub 2-digit market, I don't think Microsoft will ever allow something like this. I mean, you guys play nice.
Right.
Let's just grow together and take it from there. But just looking at the two phones, I don't know about the technologies and the patents involved, but it surely doesn't come down to design because they're different.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that I agree. I don't think anything's going to come of this. But it was interesting that, you know, we all sat there for the first couple of days after the HTC announcement saying, wow, man, that's they really took a page out of Nokia's book.
Yeah.
But again, this says something about Nokia and HTC. As I'm going to touch on this, and everybody hates me. They were just throwing trucks of spit in my direction when I said that everybody's picking on Apple because, of course, you're picking on the big one, the one you're afraid of.
Sure.
The Galaxy S3 is picking on the iPhone 5. The Lumia 920, even though not officially, but is picking on the iPhone 5. And now Nokia picking on HTC means something good for HTC. I mean, Nokia is afraid of HTC, the way I see it.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think it's because finally HTC has kind of awoken from its slumber and they were like, yeah, we're not going to do another kind of dull looking Windows phone.
Finally.
We're going to drop some science. And, you know, it took me a second to, I actually sat in bed one night after the HTC announcement on my tablet, in between bouts of dropping it on my face because I was too tired. And I'm like comparing the HTC Windows phones with the Nokia Lumia series, and I'm kind of having this thing inside me where I'm like, what am I gonna do? I'm having a crisis of you know, which one am I gonna buy? And then ultimately it came down to something that Nokia was not at all afraid to point out in an infographic, where they're like, good things come to those who wait, as Adam Lean points out in a piece, where like, they're pointing out their wireless charging. They're pointing out their kind of superior design. They're pointing out.
But again, they're comparing it to the iPhone 5.
Well, they're comparing it to the iPhone. Yeah, they are. You're right, they are. But I think other sites have kind of done this with, and I think we've done this between the Lumia series and the HTC Windows phones. And it's like, yeah, they look similar. I still think Nokia brings more to the table. And I ultimately ended up settling on the Lumia again personally, but. It's just interesting what far-reaching effects just launching a bunch of multicolored phones can do for your brand. I mean, that's, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's not all that the new HTC phones are about. But.
Let's not forget the social life is probably more active than our normal day-to-day lives. So when picking between an HTC Windows Phone 8X/8S and the Lumia 920, I think most people will go for the better camera on the Lumia 920 because just HTC, I don't know, and again, they will hate me. The One X didn't do good pictures. It was the screen that made the pictures look good. But comparing the Lumia 920 with the HTC Windows Phone 8X, we don't have officially we don't have review units yet, but I have a hunch the Lumia 920 will own camera-wise the HTC phones.
Right. Yeah, I think you're entirely right, and you know, whatever. I'm not going to talk about how I want the 920 in cyan, and so let's just move on because I'm really sad. Still,
it's coming. It will be here.
Better be here. I hate warm colors in phones. I don't know why. The Lumia 610 was sort of the old, you know, really low-end Windows phone. Now it looks like there's a 510 in the works, and we got details on that. This was a story from last week, but we didn't touch on it. This looks to be like this an even lower end.
That looks like a Huawei phone to me.
It does. It's got really rounded corners. It's actually not too bad looking from the back, but it's got the same 800 megahertz processor and 256 megs of RAM as in the 610. So it's not going to run apps like Skype well. It's not going to do. I mean, I just can't believe. Is anybody else surprised that they're going even lower end here? I thought the 610 was where they would bottom out. I mean, what's Nokia trying to capture with this that they couldn't get with the 610?
Emerging markets.
Sure,
China.
but I mean, that's where they're pushing the 610, isn't it?
Yeah, but it will probably be either one carrier specific or another carrier specific, or it will be prepaid, or it will be a free phone.
Right.
I mean, obviously they will stick to Windows Phone 7.5 Tango or wishful thinking 7.8, but that's as far as it gets.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about what that does to the Windows Phone brand overall. you know, with this, I don't know how much penetration these lower end devices are going to get, but I wouldn't want, if I'm Microsoft, I don't want I do want to capture that market. Don't get me wrong, but I don't want to capture it with devices that can't run all the apps that Windows Phone can run or run them well.
That's true, but also we have that in Android. I mean, look at the Samsung Galaxy Geo, look at the LG Optimus One, and look at all the low-end Android phones. They are running the operating system. Yeah, they are They're cheap. They are running applications. Not all of them, but most of them, right? So it's for teenagers or for people who don't have money to invest in a higher-end hardware.
Yeah.
And you know, I always get kind of frustrated when I hear that Microsoft is releasing a specific version of Windows Phone just for the lower end market. But you have to remember that these guys salivate when they think of, you know, the 1 billion people that live in China who want to who want to be like, you know, the rest of the world and have these high end smartphones, but you know, don't want to pay, you know, $200 or whatever it is for it, and you know, they do a little bit of multiplication times 1,000,000 whatever billion is. Sure. And so, you know, these low end is huge opportunity for electronic companies,
and not necessarily for hardware, but for the ecosystem itself, because those people will buy applications from the store.
Yeah, sure. and those people will grow up and get jobs, and they'll buy the higher end one and download lots of apps. And
yeah, but you know, and it doesn't always work though. Like, you have to really follow through with that, because that's what. Remember what Danger tried to do before Microsoft bought them? Danger made the Sidekick. And the Sidekick was, or I guess the Hip Top is what it was called before T-Mobile rebranded it. And like, they established a real cult following with these kind of like teenage users and this kind of alternative lifestyle skateboarder kind of thing. And then once the Sidekick brand became, you know, old enough, it was like 6 or 7 years, or yeah, about maybe 6 or 7 years old. And those kids who bought the Sidekick had kind of like grown up. So Danger was like,
iPhones.
But Danger was like, well, we're going to capture that. So we're going to release like the Sidekick HD or whatever they called it. And it was actually a really cool device.
That was an Android phone, right?
And it was Android based, right? But nobody bought it. They all, like you said, they all went to go get Android phones, or they all went to go get iPhones. So you can't always rely on that. And I feel like this is the thing that struggling maybe smartphone manufacturers or platform makers say. They're always like, listen, there's still 40-something% of the world's users are not on smartphones, and this is what Palm said, this is what BlackBerry is making a big deal about saying, and this is what they're going to fight with Microsoft, who's also saying this, like, we want to go in there and capture that. I completely agree, and I think it's a good tactic, but nobody's done it successfully. And those people, what's going to stop all those people who are just sitting there saying, well, I want to go get an iPhone instead. I want to go get the new Galaxy. You know?
It'll be kind of difficult to buy an iPhone in China if you are living and working and earning in China. But
of course.
Once you have a 3, 4, 5, I'm being optimistic, market share, you do everything in your power to boost that number, even if it means that you have to get 12, $14, $15 hardware out there. One user is one user plus, and China, as Brandon mentioned, is the #1 mobile market. So Nokia is trying to boost their market share. Microsoft is trying to do that. And why not? Let the Asha phones are great phones for emerging markets, but between the Nokia Asha and the Nokia Lumia 500 or 610, probably people will buy the Lumia because Microsoft is a brand which is active on the market, and Symbian is just Symbian.
Hey, may I be spontaneous?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Only if you ask permission first.
Oh, I just did.
Yeah, what's up?
So BlackBerry Jam just happened. We saw BlackBerry 10 a little bit more intimately,
yes.
Well, at least through video. And BlackBerry CEO, Thorsten, what's his name?
Torsten Heinz.
That's right. He said that BlackBerry has a fair shot at being a strong #3.
Good.
Do you guys agree or disagree?
No,
no.
even after seeing there were some cool features of it. Has a new interface paradigm where your home screen is not widgets or icons; they're like live applications. Right?
Yeah, actually, and I got a little excited about that for obvious reasons. I like some of the new interface paradigms that RIM is bringing to the new BlackBerry, but I think they're so far behind. Not only do they have to release this family of products and this new platform, but they have to maintain developer interest that is just waning so rapidly, and they have no momentum. They have reverse momentum. they're in a backward slide right now. I don't think they're stagnant anymore. I think they're actually actively rolling backwards down the hill. And I don't know. I have no hope for them, regardless of how innovative their new products are.
So I don't want to. I really think that a company like even Samsung or HTC needs to buy BlackBerry and have their BlackBerry 10 platform, which is actually kind of cool, be like their fallback to Android and Windows Phone.
I feel like if they want to fall back to the popular one, they've got Windows Phone already, right? I mean, is it?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what a lot of these companies like Samsung and HTC are doing. They're like, oh, all right, well, Android, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. So, but look, here's Windows Phone, and actually people might like this at some point. Once
Samsung has Bada.
Cool. Oh, yeah.
Bada bing.
Yeah, I don't want to piss anybody off. BlackBerry was a great platform and ecosystem.
Absolutely.
But I just don't care about RIM anymore. And I'm sorry, guys, that it just really lost momentum. Everybody's talking Android, iOS, and Windows Phone. And if Microsoft didn't manage to pull it off almost 2 years after launching Windows Phone with Windows Phone, how could RIM do it?
Exactly. And actually, I think the most interesting question for me regarding RIM is not any longer who's going to buy them, but why would anybody buy them? Not
only those corporations, I'm sorry, Michael, which already have it implemented, the system. I mean, my ex-company switched to BlackBerries, and
no, not the entire product, the company. Like, why would anybody
the company
buy
itself?
RIM?
No clue.
Yeah,
probably because of this backend, maybe.
Sure, and I think it's just patents at this point, because I mean, nobody cares about. I don't think anybody really cares about BES, the BlackBerry Enterprise Server System, and I mean, we're all moving away from that. The whole model has shifted underneath them, so I just don't understand who would snap them up.
Yeah. Plus, BBM already has lots of alternatives.
Yeah. Most notably iMessage, of course. But anyway, I also, you make a good point, Tony. It's not that I don't want to piss anybody off. We all piss people off daily. But it's that I think BlackBerry deserves a lot of credit for coming up with a more innovative platform than they had. It's just much too late. And that's true. That's sad.
And let's not forget it's a two-way street. I mean, depending on the success or the lack of success for Microsoft and its partners, this could be either the winning or the losing card of RIM.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because currently their market share is around the same, maybe a little bit plus towards Microsoft and Windows Phone, but they're not too far away, just like, say, from Microsoft to iOS or to Android. They're below 5% both.
Yeah, actually, didn't they just announce that they grew a little bit? The U.S. overtaken by Windows Phone and 2012 BlackBerry market share. I'm sorry, I read a headline like 2 days ago where that said that BlackBerry actually managed to grow their market share because of developing markets.
But the distance between them is not that huge.
Right.
I mean, it's nothing RIM couldn't pull off, or it's nothing Microsoft cannot distance itself from.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Let's that was a good. Thank you for bringing that up, Brandon, because we did need to touch on that. I would love to use one of these new devices. I hope that we get the chance to when the review units come out.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah. So before we jump into reader mail, I just want to. We posted. Stephen Shank posted a story yesterday entitled "Would you buy a phone without a charger?" HTC and one other manufacturer think you will. O2 is the carrier, right? Yeah, O2 and HTC think you will. So apparently HTC is talking about the possibility of not bundling wall chargers anymore with their smartphones.
Gotta save 30 cents.
I mean, now, to be clear, I misread this. They are still talking about including a USB cable, so there's at least that. But what the? No, I wouldn't buy a smartphone without a charger. Like, would you buy a car without? What is this like? Would you buy a car without a driver's seat? No,
That's ridiculous.
I mean, it is ridiculous, and I can't imagine. Like you say, it's got to be like 30 cents. Their cost savings can't be that much.
They make like 100,000 of them at a time. Their cost per unit is well under $1 for that little cube thing.
Right. Like, no, don't do this.
Can I role play by myself for a minute?
What? That's your own business.
I just want to play devil's advocate, and then I want to contradict myself.
Oh, great! That sounds like a fun thing to listen to.
Michael Fisher, how many chargers do you have in your home?
Like wall chargers, like wall works like this? I have probably,
for phones, for tablets.
I have probably 12 or 13.
Brandon Miniman?
I have an infinite number of wall chargers.
Okay, so probably this was their main idea. You already have lots of chargers. Why not use one of them and charge your new phone with one of your existing chargers? Which is something I've learned Brandon does. He mixes up chargers and phones, and he plugs his phones or tablets inside the nearest charger. And now I'm going to contradict myself. This is not cool. This is not even, how should I say this? Every battery needs to be charged with a certain amount of current. And if you take the opportunity to read the labels on your chargers, I have 4 in front of me. One charges with 0.2 amperes, one charges with 0.4 amperes, one charges with 1 ampere, and one charges with 0.8 amperes. It's not about the speed of charging. It's about the amount of current which charges that particular battery. Yeah. And that battery cannot be charged with any amount of current because batteries vary from 1300 milliamp hours to 2550. So I just contradicted whatever I said before that, and I just played both sides.
Well, it's a good point. And, you know, I think it doesn't matter for us who change devices so frequently because of our jobs, but for somebody who's locked into a smartphone for 2 years, for somebody who doesn't want to buy a tablet but once every 3 years, you know, I think it's very important that they care for their batteries properly, and I don't think anybody does. And if you have companies being like, no, you got plenty of wall chargers at home, we're not going to give you one special, it's like, no, don't be jerks.
Please do, yeah, please give us. And not to mention that the new trend is to have non-removable batteries, which is another factor.
Can't be serviced, but for a several $100 service fee from the company when you have to send it back to them. Yeah, no, it's absurd. I think we're all in agreement. This is dumb.
Yeah.
We have, normally at this point, since we're a little over time, I would skip reader mail, but we actually have 2 really interesting pieces that bring up some interesting questions. So if you guys don't mind, I would like to read just an excerpt from a piece of mail from Chris Weber from Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, here in the States. Love this. The whole email brings up some interesting points, but his kind of primary question is he's moving from an iPhone 4 to a Lumia 920. He's kind of changing his ecosystem, is eager to see how it plays out. But he takes issue with our discussion on, I think it was last podcast, where we talked about colors. And we talked about this kind of thing where it's like, yeah, you can't, if you're a corporate user, if you're like a businessman who goes to board meetings and things, and you pull out your multicolored smartphone, whether that's a Windows Phone 8 from HTC or a Nokia Lumia, it's like banana yellow or it's, you know, bright blue. What's the matter with work phones that are bright and colorful? This jump into color will quickly become so commonplace, he says, as to become unremarkable. So I think Microsoft is doing all the right things. So, you know, that's a question that I love to answer, and because I don't know how to answer it, because I, of course, don't exist in the corporate world in any of my occupations. So I, of course, will carry a phone of any sort of color I want without worrying about how people perceive me. But what is the deal? I mean, what is is this something uniquely American, or is this something, Tony, that you see as well?
Well, I've been working in the corporate for about 6 or 7 years before Pocketnow, so I can say this. The impact in a boardroom meeting to a red, pink, yellow, whatever else color phone you can think of is the same as imagine this. Everybody at the board meeting has black suits. And then somebody comes in with a white or blue or another colored suit, or even a pink one. Why not? With his red Ferrari.
Sure.
Do you care about how he's dressed? I mean, not over or underdressing, but the style. Or do you care about that information he's transmitting, the ideas he's giving forward? And if it takes out his tennis ball HTC, then I just don't care, because I will probably have my huge humpbacked Lumia or PureView 808 with me. So I think it's probably people care too much about what other people think about them, and I don't want to piss anybody off, but I think it comes down to your level of intelligence. You cannot judge a book by its cover.
I see it a little bit differently. I think that as phones become more colorful, it will be acceptable to have a multicolored phone in front of you at a board meeting. For example, look back to 2007, and you had a board meeting. Everyone literally would have a BlackBerry, and one guy might have gotten the new iPhone, and the guy next to him says, that thing looks like a toy. How do you get anything done with it? And, today, taking out an iPhone at a board meeting, it's like, oh, you've got the same phone I have. So I think that as more phones become available that are multicolored, because right now, most phones are black and white. Most of them are just black. It's not common there are very low availability of multicolored phones.
Yeah.
Chris, if you want to buy a yellow phone and you go to a board meeting, buy it. Just don't care about whatever people say. It's your style, it's your personality, it's you. And if you want a green phone or yellow phone, just go for it.
So I agree. I mean, I see it that way. Certainly, I make those decisions in my own life. But I can see it from both sides. I think that if I were going to play devil's advocate, I would say, yeah, in a corporate environment or in any high-stakes environment where everyone has kind of got their serious face on and this is big news and there are millions of dollars at stake and whatever, people are gonna take any opportunity they can, if they're very cautious types, to say, well, that man doesn't quite fit in, or that woman doesn't quite fit in, and it's quite eccentric, and I don't want to risk my business relationship with such a person. So I understand it. At the same time, I hate it. I hate that kind of ultra cautious, super sort of conservative thinking. Whatever. I think that. Brandon, you're right. As we move into the future, as more multicolored phones become available, this kind of stigma will pass. But
Michael, do you care if you are at a board meeting or you are at any other negotiation? Let's say one CEO is coming with his silver Jag, the other one is coming with his black Rolls-Royce or Bentley, and the third one appears in his yellow Ferrari. Do you care about that?
Yes.
I mean,
I do. However, I care because I want to instantly identify with the guy in the yellow Ferrari and want to learn about how he has the stones to be different. And, I like people who are brave enough to be different. So yes. Yeah. So I react the opposite way of, yeah. Anyway, it's a fascinating discussion. And, Chris, thank you for writing in and bringing it up. And good luck with your 920, by the way. Write in and let us know how the iOS to Windows Phone transition goes for you. And finally, I want to wrap it up with a question from a gentleman whose name I will mispronounce. I apologize, but it is Khalid Almwaisa. That's as close as I can get because I'm inept. But Khalid also has a very long email for us, and love to read the whole thing, but we don't have the time. But he says, in an interview done by Wired.com after the Nexus 7 announcement, Wired asked Google, when are we going to see the Nexus 10? And they got the reply, this is where we're starting. We take it one step at a time. This is where we're starting, and we'll see what partners do in the 10-inch form factor. So Khalid asks, do you consider that as a confirmation of the long-awaited Nexus 10 by the end of the year?
No.
And? Why, Tony?
I definitely agree. There will be diversification of the Nexus brand. We're hearing rumors of several Nexus devices, even though I don't think it will become true. I think there will still be one preferred Nexus partner. But as far as the tablets are concerned, yes, Google wants to move into the 10-inch form factor too, because that's the main tablet market.
And do you think they'll do it before the end of the year?
No, I think that they will do it with the next iteration of Android, but I do think that by the end of the year, we might see the next Nexus phone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't think that we'll see the Nexus 10 before the end of the year. I do think we will see this kind of increased watering down of the Nexus brand over different manufacturers. I don't like it, but I think we will see Motorola and Asus and Samsung, continue to make their own versions of Nexus devices. And I think it's going to get to the point where it's a little bit like Samsung's Galaxy brand, where it's quite watered down, and that's a shame. But I think definitely a Nexus 10 is in the cards, but no, I would not say by the end of the year, certainly. So,
I would like to see Asus's response to the Nexus 7. I mean, Asus makes the Nexus 7. I want to see a self-branded Asus tablet in the same form factor, maybe with the camera at its back, maybe with a better display, and see how well that would play along.
That's a good. I would be curious to see it from a professional standpoint. I don't think I would buy it, but I agree. I don't know. It's interesting. I think I'm so in love with the 7-inch space that 10-inch Android tablet news doesn't really excite me anymore.
I want my iPad mini.
Well, I think you'll get your wish pretty soon.
Yeah.
Well,
If the leaks are to be believed, who knows,
yeah.
right? All right, guys, before we wrap it up, Brandon, do you have anything further?
Nope, that's all I got today.
Yeah, this was a good long one. And Tony?
No, I'm good. We're at the 1.30 mark, so this is more than enough for guys to get bored.
I completely agree.
Hopefully not.
Although we have had some wonderful comments from all sides of the equation saying how this is the best hour and a half of my day or something like that.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Goodness, thank you. It's
Really, isn't that nice?
Make sure to leave that comment on iTunes and in the Zoom.
Yes, please.
Please.
We so
We need some reviews.
We so need iTunes reviews, guys. It's getting to the point where we're really kind of very enthused about getting those. But that wraps it up for us for this week, the Pocketnow Weekly. Good to have you back, Tony.
It's good to be back. Thank you very much.
And feel free to throw a tweet our way, everybody, as most of us are active on the Twitter sphere as usual. Brandon Miniman, at Brandon Miniman. Tony over there, at Anton D. Nagy, ANTONDNAGY.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And you can find me. I'm Michael Fisher. I'm at Captain Two Phones. Captain, the number 2 phones. Follow our official Twitter account at Pocketnow Tweets. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/pocketnow. Google Plus, just search for us, or at gplus.to/pocketnow. As we mentioned, leave us a review on iTunes or Zune if you like the podcast. If you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, we're going to keep reading your mail on the air whenever we have the time. Please email us, podcast@pocketnow.com. Everyone, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.